Hello, welcome, and thank you everyone for being here. I trust you're having a good day. My name is Simonetta Moro, and I am the director of the Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts, a low residency PhD program in art, philosophy, and aesthetics based in Portland, Maine, in the United States. And I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our speakers today for the spring panel discussion on Maori culture, with two exceptional guests, Piripi Waretini and Simon Leeming. I would also like to welcome to this discussion Professor George Smith, the founder and president of IDSVA, and also I would like to thank Angela Lynn Dunlop for her technical assistance today. We're here because we think that IDSVA is a learning site of enabling art and thinking practices centered on difference and a critique of Western metaphysics, which in our view has the potential to act as a catalyst to produce change. IDSVA is aimed to change the way we think, to change the way we see the life world and the way we see one another. The change we are working toward as a shared communal aspiration stands as IDSVA's vision of the possible. So it is all the more fitting that to dedicate this session to an introduction to Maori culture, with a particular emphasis on the role of language, te reo Maori, in shaping and nurturing the native culture of Aotearoa New Zealand. My apologies.
Grazie, grazie.
I will start by briefly introducing Simon Leeming, followed by a few remarks by Professor Smith. Then Simon will speak for about 15 minutes, after which I'll introduce Piripi Waretini, who will talk for about 45 minutes. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the session, but please feel free to enter your questions while the presentation is in progress. You will find a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you do so, the speakers may address them as they talk. So thank you for your participation. I just want to say this presentation is recorded and will be made available in our Vimeo and YouTube channels. So here we are. Simon Leeming is a fifth-generation New Zealander living in Wellington. He has practiced law for 40 years in the US and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and served as New Zealand's honorary consul to the New England states for 20 years. Importantly for us here, Simon was a board member of the Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts in Portland, Maine, between 2006 and 2014. So it's a very great pleasure to welcome you back in our fold, Simon. Besides that, he has also been on the board of numerous civic and charitable institutions. In 2013, he was made a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for his contributions to New Zealand and US relations. Simon has a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from Boston University and the University of Wales, and a Doctor of Laws from Suffolk Law School in Boston. He's currently working towards a BA in Maori Art and Design at Massey University, Aotearoa, New Zealand. He has been a wood carver for over 2 decades and has been tutored by established Maori carvers. He sits as a trustee on 2 regional Maori trusts and is consulting to an iwi, or Maori tribe, on claims issues relating to the Treaty of Waitangi. There's more to say, but it is my pleasure now to pass the microphone to Professor George Smith, who will make a few remarks of his own. Thank you.
Thank you, Simonetta. That was a wonderful introduction to my dear friend, Simon Leeming, whom I've known since boyhood and whom I've admired since the day I met him. But I just want to mention as we get going here that maybe now 40 years ago, 35 years ago, Simon and I took a long walk on an island off the coast of Maine in the North Atlantic, and sat on a beach for an hour or 2 in the dark, talking about how wonderful it might be if one day we could somehow or other be instrumental in bringing our own lives together with the culture of New Zealand in such a way that it would inform the world of the promise of the future of the kind that we were actually dreaming of as we were as young men gazing at those stars. So here we are now in this moment, realizing that dream that I invite everyone to join in on as we think about how the future of the world might in fact find some promise in the wisdom of the kind that we will hear from Piripi and others. Thanks, Simonetta, and Simon, I welcome you to jump in.
Well, firstly, I'd like to welcome our guests and visitors to our session. We're very much appreciative of everybody who's joined, and in the future it'll be available for being recorded, so also be available in the future. I'd like to thank the Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts, a great groundbreaking institution which has cut a great sort of change in the world of artists and curators of museums and others. It's done a marvelous job. And George Smith, my dear friend, who we have been friends, as he pointed out, for a long time, was such instrumental in all of that. And Simonetta, thank you very much for putting this together, and Al and others on the staff. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today, and is somewhat a realization of a dream. And hearing those kind remarks, Simonetta, from you, and George, from you, I almost feel I'm sort of watching my own funeral. So thank you. I'd like to set the stage, set what we call the paipai, which is the stage upon which Piripi will talk. And for those who are very familiar with New Zealand and its history, I ask for some forgiveness, because I'm going to go through some of that in a brief way, because I think it's important to bring what's happened in New Zealand up to today, so that then Piripi can take that and move it forward. So we start with Gondwana land, back 4.6 billion years ago, when the Earth itself was being formed. And that was the great southern continent, which included Antarctica and Australia and New Zealand and New Guinea and other places. And in 83 million years ago, what is now known as Zealandia broke away from that great continent. And Zealandia is in fact the 8th continent. 85% of it is underwater, and the 15% which is above water is New Zealand itself. The dinosaurs, huge eagles and primitive trees and birds and reptiles thrived in early New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand. The dinosaurs were wiped out approximately 63 million years ago. There is a tuatara in New Zealand, which is a lizard which harks back to the age of dinosaurs. It has a third pineal eye. And New Zealand had no predators. It was birds. The only mammals were bats and sea lions and seals and other coastal creatures. And 1,000 years ago, the great Polynesian traveler, navigator, seafarer, Kupe, came to New Zealand with his wife. And as he came, he saw this stretch of land with a bank of clouds all above it, which his wife named Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. And when anybody who's coming to New Zealand flies in, it's usually early in the morning, and as you look out the airplane window, you can see the same scene that Kupe would have seen back in the day, with the long banks of clouds stretching above our beautiful land. In 1642, Abel Tasman of the Dutch East India Company rediscovered New Zealand. But in the interim, 7 canoes had come to New Zealand and the Maori people began to populate the country all up and down. And today, Maori each can link their ancestry back to one or more of those canoes. And when Abel Tasman came, he didn't actually set upon the land, but when he came, local Maori believed that he was coming to take their agricultural. He came to a place where there was a lot of agriculture going along, and Maori believed that he was coming to steal that, and consequently 4 of his crew were killed, and the place became known as Murderers Bay. 142 years later, the great James Cook, Captain Cook, rediscovered New Zealand for the 3rd time. And again, his relationship with Maori was a little bit strained. There were some deaths, but he had with him Tupaia, who was from Tahiti, who was a translator, and Cook has been called the greatest traveler, further than any man has gone before him, but we would dispute that because we think that Kupe actually should hold that title. New Zealand was the largest landmass to be populated by people. And after James Cook, sealers and whalers, because it was a great time of whaling from North America, from Britain, from other places, came to New Zealand. And there are also escaped convicts from Australia and many other unwelcome sort of people who created havoc. There was a town called Kororareka, which is now called Russell, which had been described as the Gomorrah, the scourge of the South Pacific, with taverns and fighting and prostitutes and drunkenness and all sorts of horrible stuff, which triggered a couple of things. One was missionaries had come to New Zealand in 1815, and local Maori were very upset with what was going on with some of the so-called immigrants to New Zealand. And so in 1835, most of the tribes declared what's called the Declaration of Independence, where Maori declared that it retained and has sovereign power over New Zealand. And 5 years later, the formative document of the New Zealand Constitution, the the Treaty of Waitangi, was formed between the British Crown and New Zealand Maori, and it was translated from the English to Maori, which created a lot of linguistic and interpretation issues, including the fact that the Crown believed it had sovereign rights over New Zealand, whereas Maori understood that the Crown had the right to essentially to govern its people, but that Maori retained their sovereign rights, their indigenous, and all that they had known before that. So that following the treaty, there were land wars between Maori and the Crown. There was land was taken from Maori, and things that were intended from the treaty didn't happen. And in fact, in 1846, one of the courts declared that the treaty itself was a nothing, a nullity. And it wasn't until 1975 that the New Zealand Parliament enacted what's called the Treaty of Waitangi Act, which finally recognized and enshrined in New Zealand law the Treaty of Waitangi. And since that time, there has been, I would say, a steady move towards recognizing the rights that had been taken and they're restoring some of the land. There've been reparations. There's been a great renaissance of the Maori language and Maori arts and customs and performance. And although not perfect, when I was growing up, we used to say that New Zealand had the best relationship between its indigenous people and its colonizers. That turns out not to have been true, but we are moving towards that. And so it's with great optimism that I'm here today, because New Zealand was called the social laboratory of the world, and it still now has the opportunity through our relationship between Maori and non-Maori to move that forward. Personally, I'm Pākehā. I'm not Maori, and where I grew up was basically a non-Maori area. Although my father, my uncle, and others were quite heavily involved with Maori. The common bond, quite frankly, in New Zealand is rugby. And this afternoon, I'm going to a rugby match between Wellington and the Waikato, which is the great religion in some ways of New Zealand. My real introduction or enshrining into friendship and Maori culture began when I was the honorary consul, and in 2001 we put on a hangi, which is a traditional way of cooking food in the ground. We had rugby games and we had all other stuff, and for 18 years we had a hangi every ironically on the Columbus Day weekend. And from that, the first time the Kahurangi Māori Dance Theatre came, and because of some issues with their vehicle, ended up staying with us 2 weeks, and great bonds were then formed. I started to carve because I was taught by one of the carvers of the group of 8 who came. We're still, I'm on the trust for the Kahurangi Māori Dance Theatre, and over the years we had Tumanuko and London Haka and other groups come and perform. And one year we had well over 800 people at our hangi, and we became really the center or the outpost of Maori in the US, and great friendships were formed. Myself with John Royal and Ata Papa and Albie McElroy and Jesse McRae and Isaac Teokota and Tiaka Kahi, Dino Rosta, many others. And every year we'd all sort of congregate together. And my one regret of leaving, or one of my regrets of leaving the United States back to my native New Zealand with my wife a year and a half ago, is that we had to stop those hangis. But connections is what happened. And we, through our great friend Wallace Wiremu Totoa, we connected. I was connected with Piripi Waretini, who is our next speaker, who will take the platform, and is a wonderful, will give a wonderful address that I'm looking forward to. And there we are, up at his Tokumaru Bay, up on the east coast of New Zealand, which has been devastated lately by 2 cyclones, and Piripi and his family and others have been battling the elements to get roads fixed and transport and all of the necessaries for village life to come back together. But without further ado, I'd like to just turn it back over to Simonetta, who will introduce my great friend, Piripi. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful introduction. Yeah, it is my great pleasure to introduce Piripi Waretini. I would like to also apologize in advance for my likely mispronunciation of Maori words. I'll do my best.
Perfecto.
Piripi belongs to the Waikato Maniapoto Tribal Confederation. He is a certified translator with the Te Taura Wiri I Te Reo Māori, Maori Language Commission of Aotearoa, New Zealand, whose translation work ranges from complex legal documentation and Pushkin's poetry in Yambing tetramater to several movie scripts. With over 40 years of experience teaching Te Reo, he is an English Maori major with a Bachelor of Arts from Waikato University. Piripi is a poet, a writer, and a musical composer, and amongst other things was the former Wellington chair of Ga Puna Waihanga, New Zealand Maori artists and writers. As an actor, he knows through experience the importance of scripting, and in particular, the importance of integrity when incorporating Te Reo Māori and tikanga, which means customs. Piripi is a huge advocate for excellence in Te Reo, mentoring industry icons such as Cliff Curtis, Jennifer Te Ataimira Ward, Leland, Michael Hurst, and Temuera Morrison, among others. Piripi was the inaugural Kaifakahere Maori advisor to parliamentary service and the office of the clerk. He and his wife Angela own their own business teaching accelerated Te Reo, specializing in the corporate marketplace. And in addition, they deliver to Whenua Māori and Marae forums via the social enterprise arm of their business, with an aim to repopulate the Pepe, the traditional speakers platform. I would like to conclude my brief introduction with an excerpt from a letter to my 10-year-old self that Piripi sent me ahead of time. Just a brief excerpt. He says, "The growth will be that you realize wealth is actually found in how you think, not what you have. What you have is a byproduct of how you think. And you'll begin to see that relationships and people is where the real wealth can be found. It's nice to have nice things because I know you know what lack looks like. But believe me, things can change like the wind. What's cool will run out of coolness. But people and relationship are eternal. Which reminds me, the whenua you love, get with them whenever you can. They won't always be there. There are things you do that will change the lives of lots and lots of people in Aotearoa and around the world. The impact and change will come out of you being Maori, truly Maori. Right now, you won't really understand what mana is all about, but you will learn and find how that works for you and those whose lives you touch." Thank you, Piripi.
Grazie. Mi sono bene. Grazie, grazie, grazie. Kia ora koutou, kia ora tātou. Greetings, everyone. So, my name, it sounds like Piri, P-I-D-D-Y with a P-E-E at the end, Piripi. Yeah? So my name, Piripi Kingi Waretini. Should start there. So Piripi, I'm named after my deceased father. Kingi is my deceased uncle. And Waretini, our family name, actually means to serve many, many numbers. So I hope to live up to that. When I was a very young boy, really, my grandfather would teach me about speaking publicly on these on these speakers platforms like we have now. And he always said to me a couple of things. The first thing out of my mouth needs to be ko tā koutou mō kai tēnei, e mihi atu ana kia koutou. I am your servant and I greet you. That's it. Now, I fought against that. My ego wouldn't allow that as a young person. But I'd like to start with that, the words of my grandfather. So the first, just to back up on that bio, I just want to mihi, which is to greet and to recognize George, Matua George. We use Matua as a term of respect and regard, and Whaia Amy. we always believe in Te Ao Māori that mana tāne and mana wahine, the authority of men and women, rests together. And we're speaking about a meeting house, our traditional meeting house. And if you look at the shape of it, you'll see that it comes together like that. Mana tāne, mana wahine, male authority, female authority. And they come together in absolute equity. We also believe that comes from our belief system around the ecosystem, where the male entity for us is the Sky Father, and the female entity is the Earth Mother. They sit together in perfect harmony, and we're in the middle as our celestial templates for our terrestrial existence. And we're talking about how that works today. So yes, a big mihi out there, a big greeting of respect to George and to Amy, Kai Amy, Matua George, and also to Sister Simoneta. And to you all of the IDSVA whānau and community and the wider listening audience. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So I'm really quite humbled listening to the introductions and such of everyone, and to be amidst you all. So kia ora rau. I'll do my best. I promise my wife I'll do my best. There we go. So in a brief bio of my own catch-up, we had a talk earlier on that you might catch and you can get more of the detail. But essentially, when I look at it, I grew up as an Indigenous person in rural 60s New Zealand, colonized, urbanized, traumatized, isolated, disconnected. And then with time, re-indigenized and reconnected. So this will be my talk today. We call it Te Wāhi Ngaro, off the cuff, the lost part. And a former mentor of mine, Waikato, when I was a young man at university, he said, ofa te kawha, off the cuff, ofa te kawha. So he was a champion of Māori transliteration. So there you go, ofa te kawha. I'll be also speaking about whai kōrero, the art of oratory, so that we can share an experiential journey of language and culture so that you can feel the walk together with the, actually I'll take these off, sorry, I don't need to hear myself, and the importance of language to culture. So if we could just please have the first image, can you put that up for people to see? So this is our meeting house, Te Tōkanga Nui Anoho, and you can see the shape of it like that. There's a central part at the top, which is our ancestral head, and the left and right, they're about the male and female entities right there that hold that house together. You've got a pillar, central pillar that reaches up, and then it goes up further. So we see the creator above, the head of the creator comes down to the head of the ancestors, and then comes down to the speaker who sits on this pai or this platform of speakers there within the mantle and the protection of the house. So in terms of that whai kōrero and what you see, we'll be looking today at the interior, which tells us all the story. So if we can have a shot of the interior, please, Al. So in the interior, you see that's our house. It's our house of learning. That's where we sleep. That's where our mum's mum and dad slept in there 150 years going back. So it's really comfortable. Over time, of course, it moved from, say, earthen floors, and now we've got carpets and things like that, and heaters, and they put in alarms for fires and such in the modern context. But essentially, that whole house is as it was when it was first created back in 1883. Yeah, so there it is there. So it tells all the stories. There are 24 of those carved pillars that go to the left and right. As a visual institution, you'll appreciate the artwork that's gone into that, and they work in tiers. They show you about your ancestry, about how you might like to conduct your life. Above, as you look up higher, it gets to the more metaphysical side of the story. The central post tells the story. But I'm going to talk about the two figures. You can't really quite see it, but at the front there's a woman there. Her name is Mahi Nārani. I'll talk about her. And there's one right at the back, Tūrongo. She's the female matriarch, and Tūrongo at the back is the patriarch of our tribe. So to take us into the house, I'd just like to share an incantation about moving into new spaces together. As you're walking into new spaces, you might be doing a presentation, you might have you might have an exhibition on and it's the first time that you're either delivering or going into it. So this one here is about playing. Now, at the back here, you can see there's a mere pono. So the mere pono is what we use when we give our talk. So and just briefly do an incantation here as we go into the house. This incantation was taught to me by one of our Maniapoto elders. My tribe is Maniapoto. I'll be speaking about him as our ancestor in around 1992. And I was presenting on behalf of the Te Kura Toi Whakaari o Aotearoa, the New Zealand drama school where I was teaching at the time. And we went to a meeting of all the New Zealand Māori artists and writers at a place called Omaka Marae in the Tauihu in the top of the North Island. And after my talk, he came back and he said to me, "Oh, you might like to learn this kōrero." It reminds me of my uncle, Mac. He was an ex-World War II veteran, very, very humble man, and Mac Waretini, Makirini. And when he came back from the war, it was later that we found out that he was a champion boxer in there. And I think it was about early 20s, and I went to see him and asked him if to teach me how to box because I like martial arts. And at the time he said, "How old are you, Ewa?" And when I told him, he said, "You like golf?" At least you take whatever you will from there. Anyway, I think Uncle Johnny MacDonald and Uncle Johnny Mac, we called him, have thought the same thing with my delivery. He thought this could be helped out. It was quite an ordeal for me because it was the first time I was speaking in front of the Māori Queen. The Māori Queen, my gosh, it was night, the light was on. You could have heard a pin drop. And I hadn't expected to talk. I'd hand it over to my uncle and thought he would take care of that. But he said, "You do it, boy." And so I gave it. So here's the incantation. Takahia taiki a e whare. E kuhu wai wai e noko whaita, taratu, tarongo tara whewhe. Ua kaha ki tu e ne ku tāhekero. Ko te ihu, ko te aiwhiria. E kaha tōna tini, kaha tōna mano. Ona make whawhai e taka tura, e taka nei e. Ko te pō wini, ko te pō wano, ko te hau ti whakamaua kia tina. Haumi e, hui e. Ai ki. So, we're into the house. Nice and clear, just clear out. A way forward for us. So welcome. So with that, he learned that amongst the, thank you for that picture there. Oh, that's awesome. We had other luminaries of the time, other uncles, Uncle Tui Adams, Uncle Henare Tufangai. They were the leaders of our youth. So we were duplicating. Leadership leads science, you know. Duplicate, populate, just re-emanate. So as we move on, there's also a song I'd like to sing that one of our nannies had, and this is a song of hope and joining. Her name was Nani Te Kore Kran. She was a spokesperson, she was a caller. In Māori, when we start out our ceremony, we have a woman who calls and joins all the spirits from the visitors people to the people of the home people for the Māori Queen, and she was also a composer of many songs. And when groups would come, they might sing their song, and she'd stand and sing with them, and then oftentimes sing verses they'd forgotten. So as a young boy, I used to go and mow lawns and light fires for her, and I learned a few songs. So this one is one of joining us together, connecting. It's sadness of loss, but it's also hope and future-proofing. So here we go. Ka mihi tau rangi atu, ki te tini kua moi e, ki te iwi nui tonu, e aroha nui nei e, tēnā ranga waka, kei te pau, he ringa tapu, ki ahora te marino, ki hei mauri ora e kōkiri. Kia ora tātou. So, Matua Haimona, Simon, he spoke about kupe, the first discovery of Aotearoa New Zealand there. So it was in 1907, talking the Suppression Act, that really hurt us as a people. We weren't able to practice our songs, our culture, our healing. and it was a huge disruption. Now, there was an incantation that through all of that suppression has lasted all the way through to now. And it's an incantation that was used by Kupe to travel from our ancient homeland of Hawaii all the way to Aotearoa. And I just wanted to mention that now. Ko Papa Te Whaitiri, and her tupuna tūkau presented that. Now, it was held in the Auckland Museum for many, many years. She went in to check them out, and she found they weren't looked after, so she just walked out with them. Look at that. And over time, she asked me to translate that, and I did. I'm not going to intone that at the moment. I just wanted to mention that because it's lasted through all of the legal suppression. It might as well been the People Suppression Act, right? The Culture Suppression Act, and then it lasted through. I haven't actually asked Robin yet whether I can share it publicly, so I'm just being careful about that. So I want to talk about our chief, our mate, Hōturoa, who was married to Whakaotirangi. And if I could please, I'll just have a shot of the interior coming up again. Thank you. So within those pillars, you have 24 of those pillars. And Hōturoa, our chief, and Whakaotirangi, his wife, two of those major pillars. So the whakapapa, as it comes down of the genealogy, is Hōturoa, Hōtuope, Hōtumatapai, Motai, Ue, Rakamamao, Kākachi. And then it comes to Tūroma, and that's the figure right there. Now, Mato Haimona was gracious and generous, and he gifted this mere pounamu to me. At the 150th celebrations of our house, I named it Tūroma and then took it into me, Tūroma, the ancestor. So that's that ancestral line there. In around the 1995 era, we were teaching, we can take that picture off now, thank you, Al. Yeah. Around the 1995 period, I was back in Te Kuiti, where I come from. I was actually working as at Waikato prison as a manager. Anyway, we also had a carving house in our town where we taught women as well, which was very unusual. Very unusual. We're crossing a whole lot of different cultural growth spurts, if you can call it that. So this song here talks about the relationship between men and women. What it says is that really, that like Ranginui and Papatūnuku, as they work together, so we do as young men and women, and old men and women, because they have all sorts of ages. But the reason I wanted to share this is we've taken a modern context of song, expression, visual and otherwise, bringing it into a modern context, and it also is joins with a wider audience because the melody line was given to me and shared with me by my cousin Barry Taylor, who's he's an ex-guitarist, he's an ex-man for all you musicians. So. So that is, I'm not too sure it's coming through on sound. So this is a James Taylor tune, as I said, so connecting with everyone out there. And it's about male and female synergy, love and respect for one another. Here we go. E kakano I amai, I rangi Aotearoa. Ko tātou Māori mā, moa ki tūra. Mana tane wahi, e whai ngā ora. Papa ki raro, Ira tāka, we, Kakiri Kokiri. So once again, it's about the synergy between men and women as one, and also the connection again to the IHOC, to our environment. So kia ora. I'd also like to say that for the people who are listening, if you have questions, just put them into the chat, and I'll, as I'm talking, I'll weave that into our talk. So yeah, we have that whakapapa line that I brought down into us as a people. So it went from 12 generations, Aotearoa, Tōpiro, Tūmatapu, Motai, Ue, Raka, Mama, Kākati, Tāpau, and Tūrongo, the figure in the front of the house. So I also want to bring down the female line, which is from Poraurangi, Ueroa, Pukura, Wahine, Rongomai, Wahine, Kahungunu, Kahukuranui, Rākai, Hikuroa, Tu Purupuru, Rangi, Tuehu, Tuaka, Tumahina Rangi. And then from Tūrongo, these two figures in the house, Tūrongo the male, Mahinarangi the female, one from the west coast, one from the east coast. Then we have Reriahu, then we have Maniapoto, which is my tribe. And that's a connection there through those generations. So just as an aside, a brief personal aside, when my wife Angela and I got married, it wasn't Angela to Piripi, it was Tūrongo to Mahinarangi, as we celebrated that to recognize those bloodlines. So what I'd like to talk about is really in our talk today is around intention. The intention, what intention do we have? My intention today is to share this with you as a show and tell, so you're walking in my feet. Well, it might be that self-indulgent, so that we're walking in the culture rather than merely talking about the culture. Yeah, walking in the culture together. So the first part is the intention. And I would ask with you, your own intentions about what you do, why you're here, and the walk you take. And then there's the connection, te tū honotama, so that we walk together. And we also, as we walk in our feet together, we tell our stories together. We tell our stories, ancestral stories, modern stories, connection stories like Matua George and Haimona sitting there as young men staring into the stars on that beach. And here we are, te puwawai tango te whakaaro, when you have the fruition of that spark, that thought, that hinatore, just goes like that. And also about health and well-being, the tūhonotanga, because as we walk together, for us, we see the creation where Mother Earth and the heavens were separated, so there becomes a period of chaos, and then we just look to reconnecting to the environment as we live. And in many of our lives, especially and particularly here in Aotearoa, as Matua Haimana pointed out, we had a lot of chaos, or reconstructing chaos and disharmony through decolonization, colonization and decolonization. So again, with the intention, the expression, the connection, health, and then well-being, to encourage the well-being for what we call oranga, future-proofing for our kids, so that we encourage the expression of your story, your intention, your message, your connections as we walk in your feet together. So that creates an immutable cycle of internal legacies through your expression through visual arts. There we go. Yeah. The patterns of the carvings. So in terms of some of the patterns of the carvings, there's some that go like this. They look like chevrons on a corporal, well, in an army. They're called chevrons. They're shaped like this. So we call them kaukau. And kaukau are armpits. And you think, well, do Māori have an armpit fetish? No. What they mean is that This Kalkal pattern signifies leadership and also signifies high levels of nobility. So that children were conceived on these mats that had these, of high birth, were conceived on these mats, these fine woven mats that had these patterns. Before the warriors went into battle, they would walk over these mats. So the Kalkal pattern is really one of being prepared. As you go through your own work, as you express and you do your own expressions, you need to be prepared. So what you'll do when you do that is you make sure that you're in the zone, in the lane. Right? Before talking today, I actually changed my whole talk and delivery as I spoke with my wife last night and early this morning, and prepared for that. So that's called Kalkal. So when we form haka, which is a posture dance, we're like this. Kia ora, kia mau whenua. Now you see that there, and you're showing your armpits, which is bring your A game. We're ready to engage. Right, so that's what the Kalkal pattern is. There's another one that has Wahaurua kōpito, which looks like this inside the house. And what that is the mouth and the womb of the umbilical cord. Once again, if you're not sure, if you're from another culture, you might think, well, now Māori have got not only an armpit fetish, now they've got a belly button fetish. But what that really is a connection to home. When our children are born, we take the afterbirth and we put it into the land. It's called whenua, and the afterbirth is called whenua. So it's got a double connection. From there, when you go wherever you go in the world, you come back to that whenua. Recently, back in our area of Whaimaroa, my kids took all of the afterbirths of all of the mokos, and we had a ceremony there and buried them. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. I was locked in through all the devastation we had here. So one of my relatives took that ceremony. So when we see that, that's connections to home. I want you to think of when you're isolated, you might be in an urban area. You might be far, far from your beloved kids and kin, and you just pick up the phone, or now you can go on, FaceTime or whatever. That's that connectivity. Wahaurua kōpito. The other thing we might have is what we see, roi mata toroa, which is the tears of the albatross, and they come down like little dots like this. And that's the story about Paurangahua, who actually sent the first trans-Pacific crossing with these two magical birds, Haromanuku, Haromarangi, staying close to the earth, staying close to the heavens. Right? And there was but there was a first young learner from IDSVA who went over to take the kumara to Aotearoa. And he was told, look after these birds. They're magical birds, man. They're very, very special birds. Look after them. But he didn't. And then when he sent them back, they were a bit battered up, and they got hit up by Tunui Te Tika, which is a denizen and things like that. And they got bashed about. So when they went home, they were very sad and boo-hoo-hoo to the priest, who then sent a charm, and which made the kumara actually just grown beautifully in Eden, if you like, at Aotearoa. But then they were encircled by bugs and other things, and that made you have to work harder to make them grow. So that really is all about due diligence and attention and care and love and empathy and gratitude. So that was the lesson. That every time you look at these, they tell you stories about your behavior. There's others that talk about hoitama, like they look like stairways on a pipeline that that you get through 101, 102, 103. So each of these really is an organic messenger of how we work as a people. Yeah, so thank you for that question. There's another one called Pura Pura Whetū, all the stars in the heavens. And the Pura Pura Whetū stars, they are about, they look like little, almost little hexagons, but they're little, and there's lots and lots of them. So they're about growth, population, regeneration, kids. And the final one I'd like to talk about is Pātiki. Pātiki is a flounder. Pātiki. Now we've got a constellation up there in the heavens in the Milky Way called the Pātiki, and when at a certain time of year it's perpendicular, or it's not in line with the Milky Way, but then as the seasons change, it becomes parallel. Right? And for us, we know that that's a good time of harvesting. I used to go, when I was a boy, I used to go spearing with my older brother for these Pātiki. And we had an old lamp and a spear, but my job was to hold the sack. I just flapped my arm, he put it in and get all these different sound going in, and then he gave me a shot at it. Well, I couldn't, I've been waiting for ages. I was just a little boy, just floating in the water. So I saw it, I saw the flounder, and I excitedly went to plug it, and I missed. Because I went from the air into the water, and as you move from what we call tawhiri mātea, and you move into a different medium of tangaroa, tawhiri mātea, god of winds and storms, and atmosphere, and then into the water, it's a different brother. So I wasn't aware of the reflection, so I missed it and just muddied all the water, and we had to go home. But anyway, the Pātiki is all about abundance. So that's just a brief aside to talking about what these patterns represent. They help you and they modify behavior. You can either choose to have self-defeating behavior, self-limiting behavior, which we call noa, or to be common, or you can have self-modifying behavior, which we call tapu, which is our value system, the way why we do what we do, getting back to our intention. So the greatest platform we have for what we're doing, this platform like this, public speaking, oratory, and the importance of te reo and Māori culture is the platform to be at. That's the place to be. But that big head in the sky, the one in the ancestral on top of the house. If we could have that first shot again, please, Al, of the outside of the meeting house. And you can see that. For some of you that are older and around the American culture, that one at the top, we would call, Mokoli Norson, Kama Norson, the big head up there. Right? But we do that through karakia, through prayers, which are our energy sources, so that we align with a higher level of engagement. And we also align with the head of our ancestors in that house, Te Tōkanga Nui Anō. And then it comes down to the head who is speaking on the platform right now. So you have all those conduits, you have the conduit or the amo rangi, those armatures on the house that go left and right, they're called amo rangi to the heavens. So you really align at a different level of engagement as you speak on behalf of the people, so that your heart, your mind, your sensibilities are all towards that way. Now this house, Te Tōkanga Nui Anō, comes from our ancestor, Parawhete. And what actually happens is that she was in a different, she'd gone off with someone else in a relationship, and her husband had come to get her. And when he got there, she warned him about, by saying these words, "Hea koe haere mai I te raurau te haere, te noho atu ai, te tōkanga nui anō. Why did you come with a small basket of a traveller rather than staying home at the marae?" What she was saying was warning him that you're in peril, you're in danger. So as they were doing their exchanges, he'd made a plan, and as we were performing the haka, he said, "Mata mata hopukiri a tupete," and this mata went out and dispatched the other guy. And that's how our house got its name. So speaking through this really is, when you have whaikorero, you've got no props. There are no props, there are no images like this. You have to create them visually in people's minds as you speak. So you've virtually got, I heard from the cowboys, just have 4 chords and the truth. So as I'm going through, I'm using some of the different forms and songs and things to share these with you, to set a scene, to set a palette, to set a play. You can remove the image now, thank you, Al. And as again, for any people listening, you're welcome to ask some more questions.
Piripi?
I'll give it with one of these different genres of taking one piece of chordal. So this one says, "Piki mai, kake mai." I climb. O mai te wai ora. I'm wanting to get some inspiration. Kia e tū te hua as I'm standing here in front of you, or sitting here in front of you. Ko a te moe a te kui e te pō i raru wai wairaka. Because I'm here and I'm in a place where there's some troubles going on. So I'll just notice that there's a question and answer box. Thank you, Simonetta. And I just close that up a little bit.
Piripi, would you like me
Yeah, can I get a
to
copy
read
of the
the?
Bible? No, sure you
read the
can.
question?
Just get kia ora. Watarawi. Wātea. Watarawi. Of course you can. Bird, kia ora matua Bird. Just checking up in the karakia for the session. Is it relevant? Bird. I notice that each statue in the meeting room has a different expression. Do you have a meaning behind each of them? Yes, they are. There are lots of, they have a whole plethora of different expressions, like you do as you have emotions, you know, all sorts of things. So of course they're going to be expressing a particular type of thing. I'll come back with that at the end and get you with that question. So thank you for that. So 4 chords in that group. So you pick my kake mai. So I climb. O mai te wai ora kia e tū te wana koia te moia te koe te pōpō I rara mai wairaka. Papa ki tuana ngātai ki te ranga. So you've got the crashing tides at Spirits Bay when people pass when they die at the top of the North Island. You have the Tasman and the Pacific crashing together. Ngātai ki te ranga. Ka pō kao as night followed day. Ka pō kao kawa te. There's a new dawn, a new light, the new generations coming through. Kids, future proofing. Bihei mauri ora. Life must go on. Male injection of life, female nurturing of life, life itself. So you can do it like that, you know. You can write so, or you can do it in an Orange's way. Ki mai kake mai. O mai te wai ora ki au I tū te wana koe te mai te koe te pō I rau wai o wai. Papa ki tuana ngātai ki te renga, ka pō kao kawa te ti hei mauri ora. Or you can do it like that. Or you can change it to the genre into a song, like this. Iki mai kake mai rata, o mai te wana I ora. Kia te te wana, o a te moe a te tukia, I te ora. O I raru ai a Papa ki tuana ngātai I te rei. I ngā kapo e a ti hei. Mauri ora, mauri ora, mauri ora, So you get those different genres that you can go through. You can have it, as I say, just as a just sharing the words. You use it as an oration, or you can put into another song form. So I wanted to talk about the connection between poraurangi, maitahu, kahungunu, rongomai wahine, mahinarangi, all these different pillars within the house itself, but I don't think there's enough time left, so we can do that at another time. Needless to say that poraurangi and maitahu, poraurangi are big people on the East Coast. They're the people of my wife. We're living here now, and we connected into the house, in our house, through the love story that they had between Tūrongo, my ancestor, and Mahinarangi, her ancestor. Okay? Through that, I just want to close now with a reconnection to you all. Oh, sorry, I need to say another couple things. Kahungunu is another one of the people in the Rongomai Wahine and Mahinarangi. They're all inside that house. All the stories are inside that meeting house. You might want to pull up the interior again, please. Al, thank you very much. And the house was built by a chief Te Kōti Rekirangi, who came from the people here on the coast as well in Gisborne, the Rongo Whakaata. And what had happened was that he was on the run from the government of the day who wanted him killed. So he stayed with our people during the 1883 period and for about 10 years. And when he left this house for us as a gift. So got to say that. Also for the Tūhoi people, when we had a battle, they called Rewi's Last Stand. Behind me is a photo of my tupuna, Rewi and the Ngai Tūhoi people came across there at the Battle of Orako. Professor Pau Temara has just written a book about that, and I'll put that as some references. It'd be a great read. And also coming back to our Waikato Maniapoto people. So I'd like to close with this waiata here. And it was written by Papa Joe Hoppe, who was a PhD in ethnology and anthropology, but he spent a lot of time in the US and as a jazz musician. So he writes a song here. I first saw it at a tangi for one of our tupuna papa rewi pānapa back in Maniapoto. And the way I was exposed to the waiata was that one was that the tangi were in the urupao, the cemetery, and Papa rewi had been buried, and everyone had gone off with some young people singing songs. And this old kaumata, this elderly man came along, asked him to pick up the guitar and play a song. And he made it look like a matchstick. It was such a yes. Anyway, I listened to the song, followed him, and this is how it goes. 25 years in the US, he came back, he still had his language, and he wrote this beautiful song. Look down, Lord, at your people who are crying. Oh, wait, thankfully, sadness. So I'd like to finish now. We can clear that picture now, I think so. Kia ora te whare, kia ora te whare, kia ora te whare. So I'd like to just finish with a reference to a poem I heard recently from Dennis Settlement from the Nicola Valley in BC and the Anthapaskan Stubiks tribe. And his poem was, I Hate You Residential School. I'll send you a flick of that because it really connected with me. And why I say that is connect with you all, right? Connect with you all. In terms of an analogy and an apostrophe, and I'm thinking of when I was a kid, pop culture, Bruce Lee, 1977, Golden Harvest Productions, Enter the Dragon. Don't think, feel. So with that, you can get that now. When I was over doing a movie called Moby Dick, we were over there and it was a wonderful experience. I worked with the great Mr. Gregory Peck, and Patrick Stewart was there, and Henry Thomas, my mate Henry. He was a boy from ET. Anyway, we did a rendition of that. One of the other Māori there was Apirana Taylor. And while we were there, we had the after a rap party, right? And we'd agreed to do kamate kamate. It was me, Chris Graham from Ngāpuhi, Api from Ngāti Parao on the East Coast, and then me. And we went to do the haka. Api, you know this. We went to do the haka kamate that we all knew, that the All Black rugby team performed. Mato Simon's going to rugby this afternoon. I just want to finish with this kōrero. And when we got up to perform it, Api just broke into his own haka from his own people called Rōmoko, which is all about the god of earthquakes. So in terms of rebranding, I wanted to draw you in emotionally and with one of our own tribe, one of our own people. So this one here is called Heorangamai. And Heorangamai is a neri, which means it's a haka, a male posse dance, is the best I can do it in English. And what that does is that you don't have any set actions, you're able to freelance. So I encourage you in your own work and your own art, as we're talking about your intention. What's your intention? What expression will you be using? What genre will you be using? And how will that connect you to your audience? And as you connect to your audience, what type of healing is going out there? And with the healing, what then provides of well-being through to the universe? Reconnecting back to the kōrero that I was really quite touched when Simonetta drew that out of my story to my, when I left it to my 10-year-old self. And connecting And the best way to do that, once again, rather than the intention is the connectors, rather than talking to you about the languages and the culture, is to move through the culture and the language. I mean, for me to have to express this entirely in English would be a really difficult job. So I take my hat off to Dennis Spellman and his cordial. You must listen to that beautiful name. That'll grab me by the heart and rip the guts out. So this particular really, as we call it, it's about survival through disaster and devastation. I want you to consider this, right? The violation of your mother, of your sister, of your children, and everything else, and then coming through that and yet still surviving as a people. Not only that, but flourishing as a people. So I just want to finish right on that note there. So, and it's and the intention again is with the connection. It goes like this. Wo he oranga mai hoki tātou, ui te pare, kōra i mana wa toki tu. Tū ko te hika o tō whai a kia mata pōpore mai ki te pirau o ta whanaunga. Whanaunga mati ki te pō, tini o te pō, manu o te pō, ahana kore o te pō. Oh, hei te pō, hei te pō, hei te ao, hei te ao. Hei te pō, hei te pō, hei te ao, hei te ao. Oh, kawhero, inge, kawhero, inge. Kawhero, te ko ia te utu o taua wahi neo taua tangata. Whakamua kōwhai, mutu ka parera toki toki. Hui! Māua wai e no mia te tai o te kōwhewhetu tata ka haere tēnei, ki te tiki tā rewa mo ana moko heia. Hei whaka ko te tamu, no me atu ko te tamu, no te ao puhi ke ko te tamu, ki mai nei, re huahia mana ki te kōkihi, au e mate te kōkihi. Ki mai nei, re huatoro mana te kororang, au e mate te kororang, kūkutia, whera ki te tau he mai, kia ha te kaimate ngi hoke ho, heke ho ano, tu ana te ke hoke ho, noa ki o ngi ho, he mai poto, kei poko ko, kei tua tera whai tua tie. The intention, your why, the expression of it. How do you express it? So that we connect. And through that connection, healing and well-being. So to guys, I encourage you all, and I look forward to hearing your stories and walking with you in your footsteps. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Piripi.
Wonderful.
Very hard to follow this act.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If I could just jump in with a word, Simonetta, and maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers, but I just want to say to you, Simon, thanks ever so much for setting the stage, as you did today, for Piripi's presentation. What you gave us, Simon, is a really beautiful, cohesive encapsulation of a very important history that we all should know more about. And Piripi, I cannot thank you enough for this magnificent gift that you've brought to us today and left with us for the rest of our lives. What a magnificent and generosity of spirit you bring to your presentation as an educator, as a poet, as a philosopher, as an artist, as a genuine and authentic human being. Being in your presence is itself a learning experience for which I am ever grateful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Piripi, and thank you, Simon. It was really an amazing presentation. There are some remarks in the Q&A, mostly people saying thank you. Somebody mentioned the te kupu.
Amelia.
Yes.
I Okay. I want to thank you from Stacey Kamihiro, but I can't see any other comments further down. So if there are some questions you might like to share them, Simonetta, and I'll do the best I can with Matuahaimana to answer them.
Yes, I would like to invite everyone to post their questions if you have any. As a follow-up to my previous one that you picked up, Piripi, regarding the carvings, and I really love the fact that you began this introduction to Maori culture, very difficult thing to do. You did it beautifully, with a meeting house. So there is a space where people come together and inhabit, right? That's symbolically very powerful. And from the depth of my ignorance of this kind of space, I wonder if you could say more about how does this coming together happen? Is there somebody who allows certain things to happen in the house? Is there a keeper of the house? Who is this person?
This is interesting. I was smiling because we had an international delegation of people from Silicon Valley, you know, and we were taken into another meeting house. And they were kind of reminded me of young frat kids that had run into a lot of money and sharing ideas around the world, good on them. So they all jumped in the van and we took them down to the house. And they said, oh, how should we behave here? Angela, no sex, no drugs, no alcohol. And just like, straight between the eyes. Having said that, at this time, and I've mentioned it before, but I'd like to formally invite both you and George to come and sleep in our house and to eat at our place and to walk through with you to tell you and share with you exactly what those mean. So, and then there's another house I'd like to share with you because there's something cooking, and like George and Matuahaimana sitting there looking at the stars. I'm sitting there looking at the stars and what potentially could be in terms of the relationship for IDSVA, taking it to another virtual level. The algorithms, what you're looking at in those statues are algorithms actually. They're the metaphysical algorithms of the universe. They tell our stories, your stories, their stories, and potentially other stories as we go through. So I can just think of being a kid there. So I go up, yay, lots of food, lots of family, and I can eat and play rugby on the place where you're meant to do speeches, and told not to play rugby on the place where you're meant to do speeches. Hanging on to my nanny's skirts and hearing all the old people doing those things and hearing all the old men doing their things and just waiting for our turn to go and get some more lollies or whatever it happened to be, right? So in the meeting houses, what you have is just go and sleep there. You know, you go and do your business, you go and sleep there, you go and eat there. It could be a 21st birthday, a wedding, funerals. The funerals are the biggest deal. They take precedence over anything else. I was there as a MC when we had our Waitangi tribunal hearings, Matuahaimana, to settle the grievances that we had with the Crown. That was recently settled. And I was like the Mahatma Gandhi guy between the home people and the Crown. So I'll just share this brief anecdote. We had the Crown solicitor and a Crown historian, both essentially telling lies because that was their job. They were paid by the Crown to tell lies. And at the end of it, I was asked to close up. And I said, oh, listen, before I close up, Your Honour, late Judge Ambler, I just got to share something with you, right? There's a kuia out there, my auntie, because just before it closed, one of my favourite auntie, Roimata Wipaki, he passes me a note and says, get a koha from these guys. Lucky the marae cat has been hit by a car. And I'm getting all these lawyers want to get out of there, all these people want to get important people, and she wants me to get a collection for her cats. Now, auntie, she loves cats. I can attest to this because when Angela and I got married at the meeting house, I'm standing there in my rooms, stuffed with my, my cloak, my personal cloak with feathers and everything. All Angela's people from Aotearoa and Mātipuro Kahuna down at the gate, and I'm nervous, grim, intended. just before my auntie does the call, she looks at me and says, boy, I'm going home to feed the cats. And she did. So I go back and try and tell a few stories about the house. Anyway, she wanted me to collect this koha. So, excuse me, Judge, before I close up, I just wanted to say that it's my favorite auntie there, and she says that lucky the Marae cat was hit by a car. And I have it on good authority, that was your car, Judge. I'm just telling stories, right? But anyway, there were two things that happened there. One is that when non-Māori want to look into the Māori world, and they want to say, what's the difference? The difference really, and it was told to me by Praere Huata, one of the relatives of the family that Mato Haimon are connected to. He said that when I was working at Waikato prison, running the dang thing, 950 prisoners, 450 staff, he says, Piripi, why are you here? Told him, he said, so why are you really here? Is that sort of guy. So he described it like this: mainstream, and I've shared this with Matua George, relationships are determined by technical, rational, or scientific approach that identifies performance, relationships to performance or behavior. So that's finite and singular. Whereas Te Ao Māori, the Māori worldview, is a participating consciousness of awareness that identifies relationships to each other. And that's collective and enduring, which is what we're doing right now. We're relating to each other, we're connecting, and we're hoping that these things, as your talk those many years ago, Matua George, we're connecting, and now they're enduring, and now they're collective. It wasn't just so you and Matua Haimon and they could just, rub shoulders and be the good old boys. It was something that grew out of this idea. And so when I finished that, I was pretty pleased with myself. But then I had another auntie who was really annoyed because she had actually placed a bunch of whakapapa, these genealogy notes, on the judge's table because she believed the lawyers and all the judges and historians got it wrong. And at lunchtime, she hit me up and said, boy, what's the matter with these guys? Because you're smoking away there. But what had happened was that the bailiff, even though we were in a meeting house, a traditional one, the system was Pākehā, was Western. We're really clear about that. And she was really annoyed because the bailiff said, we can't see these. What's the matter with them? Right for the bloody eyes, but why can't they see them? Matua, right? They had to go through due process. So I stood up and said, that's my auntie. I've been scared of it since I was a kid, still scared of her. And her name is, excuse me. And then the judge said, thank you, I'll see her after this, see you in process. Then and I said, by the way, so auntie loves cats, so there's going to be a koha going around. We don't take plastic, I don't know what your legal age like, but put some money in for the cat. So then that went around, and then I said, one last thing, I spoke about this other auntie, because the women run the world in Te Ao Māori. You can hear me, my people, you know this is true, right? So when he said, I'll speak to you after this, that connected that bit there. So then I went to close down. And as we were closing, we'd heard that I got through I was speaking in Māori, there were translators there from the Māori Language Commission, that place that said I can translate, right? And it said that the Crown solicitor's mother had died. So I heard that and stopped the proceedings and got all the people to stand to karake and pray for his mum, and we sang a song. Just to get the tune about this, you can imagine this, right? A whole marae full of Māori people. That the Māori battalion sang. The whole place was so this solicitor who could hear it, you could see his eyes wiggling because all of a sudden, the Philistines turned into Gentiles singing for his mum. That's why it was, and then we closed up after that. So again, it's reconnecting connectivity to the people. They might be the foreign affairs, but when we hear something like that, we can connect to their hearts and their grief. And there's another epilogue that follows that. So birthdays, those sorts of things, having a meeting about our local business that needs to be taken care of, and more often than not, unfortunately, funerals. Funerals are a big deal for us. We make a big deal, 3-4 days about them. And the thing is, it's definitely pathos, but it's also warmth because it reconnects us at our best levels. And often Māori is saying, gee, we must meet when it's not a tangi. And so that's it. I've taken a little bit longer to explain that to Manetta, but I hope it's adequate.
Thank you, Piripi.
Thank you, Piripi. I wonder, Senator, if I could jump in with a question for Piripi.
Please do.
You know, I'm wearing a karoo that Simon gave to me as a very precious gift, maybe a decade ago or so. And I know that you are wearing something very similar, Piripi, and I know that Simon very often wears his. Maybe you could, yes, there you go, Si. Maybe you could say something, Piripi, about the significance of the karoo for the people that are joining us today and see us wearing this karoo as a trio of shared spirits. Yeah.
Matu Hamona, can I just have a look at yours? Can you pull it up to the screen so I can see what you've got on? Okay, cool. So yeah, you can tell that you guys are in and Stimpy, you're joined together at the hip. So that koru design is about growth. It's about growth and propagation. And if you look on the Air New Zealand branding of intellectual and cultural property, you see there that it really is a reflection of the flora and fauna in Aotearoa New Zealand here. You find them everywhere. It's classic. Just look everywhere. There's a koru, right? Like if you're saying Times Square, and you look everywhere, there's a billboard like this one in Aotearoa. It's a koru. And the koru, again, is a symbol of growth, development, fruition, propagation, all of those good things, And because it's in Pounamu, which is the most important type of this is our kind of like gold and platinum thing. You know, if you put something gold there and you put something for Māori and like this, the gold gets ditched immediately. Right? It reminded me, I had a bit of we moved up from down south and we had a place in Wellington and one in Christchurch as well. When we got here, we doubled up with a whole lot of things. So we're giving away double ups. You know. Whatever you do, people, do not store things, because when you go back to store it to yesterday's news, but we had double ups. So I had this dilemma. We either had the silverware or there's less expensive ones with Māori patterns on. And I'll tell Jordan Simonetta later what I did. The one I chose, it was quite a shout out. So again, yes, the koru is about not only growth and development and propagation, but also protection. Protection, the participation in the regeneration of other growing fronds or people in IDSVA who then become doctors, right? And the growth of that, the participation. And then also the protection of that. So they're very, very apt. Haimana does it in his legal realm. He does it in his people realm. Matu, you do it in the educational field. You do it in picking up that mantle. Right. So they're each and every one of these. My one here, my wife got it. It's interesting. Our people of Maniapoto, we're fighters of the new skillet, right? And her people are gentle people. They go with he ngakora with loving hearts. So you got, if you like, a meeting of Mahatma Gandhi and Genghis Khan, and that's nice. And that's again with that manatani manawahine. So this thing here has been really beautiful. I used to have one that was a toki, which is an attacker's weapon, right? And then I noticed over the years that I've been softened.
So can I say just one recommendation, which is the wharanui Piripi that you explained so beautifully. For those in the United States and those visiting the United States, I would highly recommend going to the Field Museum in Chicago, where the Rua Tepu Puke 2, the wharanui, the meeting house that is originally from Tokumaru Bay, where Piripi is now, was eventually ended up at this museum and a huge room is dedicated to it, and it has the original paint on the mahi, on the budge. And when you go into it, the presence of this meeting house is overwhelming. And so if you're in Chicago, or if you're in the States and you're intending to go somewhere where perhaps one of the only, other than in Wellington and with Piripis, the only wharanui that has so much of the original features and has with it so much of the spirituality, the wairua of the original building, is to be experienced and to be respected, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to respond, if I can, please, to Anna.
Yes.
So, yes, hola. Hola.
Piripi, let's read the question, because I don't think the audience will see the question.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, please. Oh, she said the chant at the end seems to be a warrior chant. Is it given to Māori warriors in ceremony or dream? It seems to speak directly to the heart as a ikaro, a ceremonial chant from the Amazon. Wow. I'll say yeah. Yes, must say yes. So there was a battle at a place at Manawatoki, where the heart was cut into pieces. And the person that was there came back, and you could say that it came through in a dream, because we didn't have any written forms of writing other than what you see when we would be meeting house literate. So you can walk through the meeting house, and it's like having your algorithms, and you push play, and out comes your AI, right? So she would have had that, and then orally sent that down, and through the generations it's lasted. And despite this putting a suppression act and such, yeah, it's lasted through the annals of time and the savagery of colonization and white supremacy, so that it's come and it's stayed there. So thank you for that question, my sister. Again, it is definitely a warrior's challenge. I mean, I don't know if you could feel it. That's the whole idea of, rather than talking about the culture, but sharing with you. You just, you can you just fire up on that. So yes, it is. So to get directly to your response, it is a chant given not only to warrior men, but warrior women, right? Amazonian women, right? And it does come through the dreams I spoke earlier on about, in the same way that Simon, Matua Haimon and Matua George had that dream, te puā waitango te whakaaro, that kernel of creation, and then through that thought and fruition, who would have known that it would lead to many, many, many platforms and speakers and voices and business like this. So, yes, gracias, mi compañera, ahora siempre pensaremos en el pueblo de Amazon. So with Deborah, the intention, the integrity, the connection, you walk your talk. Oh, thank you. You should write an article about these three values that create growth and development. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. I'll speak to my social marketing area, and Matua Simon will follow through with the written work. He's our master at what we call high-level dishwashing. So I'll have a talk with him and perhaps write an article on.
Thank you.
And he just, I prefer to play rugby. So thank you for that. Simonetta.
Great. Well, we are at the 90 minutes. I wonder, there's one final question perhaps that our Angela Lynn put out there. She says, on April 20th, you will see a solar eclipse in New Zealand in the morning. I have been wondering if there is a significance of eclipse in relation to the earth and sky references you made earlier.
That would take another 90 minutes, to be fair. I'm serious. It would
Which
take
I'm
another
afraid we
90
don't
minutes.
have.
All I can say is this, that Māori will create narratives and stories. Each of those whakapapa lines I give, each of those names that go down, could be Paddy, it's Sean, it's Paddy. Each of those has its own narrative. And each of those descendants has its own narratives. And I encourage my mum, my kids, and all of them to write in the first person. The first thing I remember growing up is, and that's what the letter to my 10-year-old self was, Simonetta. It was something so that my kids could read that and walk through the shoes of their pa. Because they went from being what we affectionately call pa rats to living in white privilege. Because someone crossed the pathway. But you've got to remember where you come from, humble beginnings, noble outcomes. Aitea taikaka ariki. So, and coming back to that story there, and what you were saying about the eclipse, thank you, Al, for that question. So, if I look at the eclipse, we see Tamanui Te Rā as a young man at its zenith, like Matua George and Matua Haimona when they were working at the rusty scupper, very rusty, very scuppery, right, and very young. Quite up and phenomenally focused on their fantastic fun-filled whakapapa kōrero and financial futures and brokers of skunk, right? But they had dreams. So there they were at the rusty scupper. And so when you see the sun at its zenith, that represents a young male youth. And that's where the haka comes from, because when the sun comes down and hits the earth in the summer, the heat rays come up. We say that the sun had two wives, the winter maiden and the summer maiden. It was from the summer maiden with those fire that you get the wedding, and that's the god of the haka. Like that. So that's the sun and its zenith. Then you have Mahina, the earth maiden, Phoebe in Greek culture. I used to teach classical studies one time. Anyway, you've got the moon maiden, right? And she's there, and believe it or not, in our culture, there comes a time you've got I'm going to put mother nanny in the middle of the sun and the moon, and in that meeting house, she said, boy, you sleep there, girl, you sleep here, I'm in the middle. So you don't, when you're young, you're just a kid with adult bits, right? So you've got nanny in the middle. Then nanny goes to sleep and you get a bit of a clink of the old eye and like this. So I'm reminded of an old movie called Lady Hawk with Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer. And in the movie, they got changed into a wolf and a hawk. And just at the touch of the door, and they saw each other for a little bit, disappeared. So for us, when you have those cycles, every now and then there's an eclipse, where the sun and the moon come together. And the moon devours the sun. And then she shines. Now, there's a whole lot of other depth in that story that we can go to a wee bit later, but you'd have to be over 18 for me to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. Thank
We
you.
might qualify for that, Matua George.
Thank you for, and maybe that's a wonderful way to say good night, but again, to say most of all, first of all, to thank you to the people who have joined us tonight. And most of all, of course, to Simon and Piripi for this magnificent gift, this beautiful, beautiful bequeath that leaves us ever enriched and ever indebted to your generosity.
Thank you, Matua.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Maori ora.
Mauri ora.
Mā te wā.
Matua,
Te wa. Thank you.
good stuff.